Yellowstone is now shaking. An earthquake has just hit right outside of Yellowstone National Park and volcano. And we are also being warned that AI is now detecting thousands of earthquakes actually under Yellowstone currently that were not previously detected as well too. So a lot of stuff is going on. We are also getting, quote, go now level 3 evacuation orders in multiple states like Colorado, Washington, Idaho, and Alaska right now happening. We're going to cover all these stories, but let's get into what's happening in Yellowstone, right? You can see here it was just hit earlier today, right? This happened in Big Sky, Montana, and this is right outside of Yellowstone National Park. You can see here a 3.2 hit Montana, and Yellowstone is currently shaking as well too. Check this out really quick, and then we'll get into more. There's more earthquakes throughout the earth as well, but check this out. AI has just discovered thousands of undetected earthquakes under Yellowstone. This is pretty wild here. They're suggesting that the earthquake or the volcano is actually a lot more active than previously known. It says AI may have just found evidence for over 80,000 earthquakes that occurred underneath Yellowstone National Parks. The quakes, which are detailed in a new study, suggest that the supervolcano beneath the national park may be far more active than we previously thought. Scientists have been using AI quite a bit to help push new boundaries in science, and we've seen AI create a new cancer treatment plan. And now it looks like researchers are turning to automated technology to help them track earthquakes and volcanic activity. However, the discovery of these 86,000 previously undetected earthquakes underneath Yellowstone is both frightening and intriguing, especially when you look at the facts that a few years ago, scientists discovered that Yellowstone has more magma underneath it than it previously expected as well too. And it says here, discovering the quakes is not a cause for panic, but it does suggest that the world beneath Yellowstone is more explosive than was previously expected. And the new study, which is published in Science Advances, looked at 15 years of seismic data. So it isn't like these quakes happened all this year. All right, so they're saying over the past 15 years, there's been 80,000 plus earthquakes that they did not previously detect underneath Yellowstone. All right, this is pretty shocking. And what they did is they took the geological survey data and the seismometer data, and they ran it through this AI programming, and they're saying that there was actually a lot more seismic activity that they were finding than was actually found by humans, all right, looking through this data. So something to think about, something to be aware of, all right. Yellowstone is shaking, and it's always there kind of looming in the background, potentially causing a threat, all right. We're also seeing more earthquakes in Alaska and Russia, and also down near Indonesia. We will get to more of that in just a second, but there's also been go now evacuation orders issued for Rainier and Thurston counties here. You can see this is a level 3 leave now, quote, leave now evacuation order has been issued for people in Rainier, a city in Thurston County. It says those who live in the area of Rainier Road between 138th Avenue Southeast and Military Road are told to leave, and it's unclear exactly how big the fire is. It says roads may be blocked or congested, so plan your route accordingly, and the order went into effect at 4:20 p.m. So that's another thing to think about with these evacuations, is that this is in Washington, right? Is that a lot of times the roads are clogged, especially these rural areas. It's one way in, one way out, and if everyone is clogged up at a light or a turn, something along those lines, you're not going to be able to really move, right? So really a tough situation to be in when you get an evacuation order for any type of emergency, right? You can see here also level 3, quote, go now evacuation orders have been issued for a wildfire burning near Athol, Idaho. It says evacuations have been ordered. It says level 3 for the entirety of Little Blacktail Road. Also a level 2 for all residents a quarter mile north of Little Blacktail and Blacktail Road, and a level 1 for all residents a half mile north of Little Blacktail on Blacktail Road. So these fires are spreading. There's also evacuations in Colorado and Alaska. We will get to that in just a second, but listen to this really quick so you can see some of the fires in Idaho.
In North Idaho this evening, level 3 go now. Evacuations are in place for a fire in Athol. Authorities say residents from the 2200 block of Sunset Road to the northeast of that location, along with residents on Little Blacktail, are requested to evacuate immediately. Any side streets in that area of Little Blacktail and Crosswhite should also be able to leave at any moment. Sagal Elementary School will be the evacuation site for folks in that area. And check our website for the latest updates on this one as well.
All right, so just to give you some perspective of these fires, all right, that are popping up. Look at these fires, all right? There's a lot of them popping up in places like Washington. This is the Bear Gulch fire, 8,000 acres. You can see these smoke plumes too moving through the country, all right? Let's zoom out here. You can see the entire country is covered in this, or at least the western half. The southeast is doing great right now, right? They have good air quality. But where I'm at right now, I'm in Colorado. It's been smoky all day long. I've been sneezing, I've been blowing my nose, runny nose, and you can just smell it. It smells like, it doesn't really smell like a typical fire, right? I have 2 wood stoves actually in my house, and I'm burning wood all the time, right? At least in the winter time. And it doesn't smell like that. It doesn't smell like burnt wood. It smells weird. It smells like very chemical-esque, right? But you can just see the entire country is being blanketed from the smoke and these fires, all right? And lots of fires breaking out in Washington and Idaho right now, all right? So we're also getting evacuation orders right now, new evacuation orders for Colorado for the Lee fire, all right, as it continues to grow southward, all right? That's this fire here in the northwest corner of Colorado, this Lee fire, and you can see now it's 120,000 acres. So it's growing thousands of acres every single day. It's growing and it's not contained, right? So new evacuation orders have been issued. It says more than 1,200 firefighters are attempting to suppress it, and most of the western slope remains under a red flag warning with critical fire weather expected to continue. I'm like not that far from some of these fires. Let me know if you guys wanted to see some of this stuff up close. I really don't want to like go get in the middle of it when people are trying to save lives and evacuate, so I really don't want to go near it. But if it gets close enough, I might just go see it, all right, because it's close enough already. Let me know if you guys like to see some of that footage. It says here, new evacuations were called today in Garfield County on the southern edge of the fire, close to Rifle, Colorado. It says here the fire is more than 123,000 acres, and about 1,000 people have evacuated across the region due to the fire. And it's now the 5th largest fire in state history. It says Highway 13, which links Meeker and Rifle, Colorado, has been closed. So you can see these evacuation zones in western Colorado that are going out, all right? And the most intense zones are the red zones, and pre-evacuation zones are being issued as well too, and the yellow zones, all right? And green zones are being issued a warning. So if you're near here, near Garfield, Rio Blanco, just make sure you have your stuff ready to go if you need to leave, because just like they were saying on that other evacuation in Washington, that the roads are congested, all right? Be prepared to not be able to move very quickly on the roads. You might be sitting there bumper to bumper for a while just to get out of there, all right, while the fire is roaring right behind you, all right? So just something to be aware of, and time is of the essence. If you get the order, the quicker you leave, the more, think of yourself, you're going to be in the front of the line more, all right? I know that might sound bad when it comes to these emergencies and evacuations, but that's the reality, is that the sooner you can evacuate, once you get the order, you're going to be at the front of the line, you're going to be waiting less, you're going to be in less danger, you're going to be able to get a hotel quicker, right? All the hotels in the surrounding areas always fill up fast when these fires hit, and people are there for a long time. Sometimes people are there for weeks, right? So it doesn't just clear out, by the weekend or by the week after the weekend. It stays full because these are evacuees, and there are shelters that you can go to, but hotels for hours around these big fires are going to experience congestion and could be completely booked up, right? There's also another major fire as well too, near Pagosa Springs, that's causing, you can see these two fires here are causing a major smoke plume over Colorado, and it's kind of combining with this smoke plume from the Los Angeles area. This big fire over here, the Gifford fire, 125,000 acres, is burning not far from Los Angeles, right? So these two fires are coalescing together with these Canadian fires, and it's been smoky. At least where I am, I can't even see the mountains. You normally can see them, and they were not visible for most of the day, right? You could maybe very faintly see a little outline if you look really closely, but normally you can just clearly see them, right? So there's also evacuation orders being issued in Alaska as well too. All right, I want you guys to look at this. It says threat over Alaska's capital sees record glacier related flooding as river tops 16.6 feet. So this is due to the Mendenhall Glacier that has been melting, and there's been a quote glacier outburst flood that is happening along the lake and the river here, right? We're seeing lots of overflows, and it's threatening the capital city of Juneau, Alaska. Let's listen here. Evacuations have been ordered. They're also warning that water has receded as of Wednesday, all right? They're saying that it's starting to slow down, and they're actually putting up these flood barriers across the capital city, and they're saying it's helped to slow the flooding. All right, so 16 feet of flooding, it's a lot, right? It's not something you expect. This isn't like a hurricane or a tropical storm. It's just glacial melt. So it's just another one of these weird weather anomalies that are happening all across the world. All right, let's listen to this really quick.
And now we go about 600 miles southeast of Anchorage to Juneau, the Alaska state capital, dealing with a major flood threat. A melting glacier pushed the Mendenhall River today to a record high crest of more than 16 feet. But more than 2 miles of newly installed barriers protected neighborhoods from a repeat of the severe flooding of the past 2 years. Katie Kester is the Juneau city manager. And Katie, you've got to be relieved. Water came right up to the top of the flood wall. Take me back to the moments. What was going through your mind as you watched this water rise?
Yeah, I think we were all just very grateful to see the HESCO barriers work. We can all breathe a sigh of relief. For the most part, we have very minimal flooding and avoided a really catastrophic event.
Yeah, thankfully. Just give us an idea of how bad it could have been had it not been for that wall.
Yeah, we could have easily had almost 1,000 structures, most of them residences, some multifamily, flooded. And for many of those homes, it would have been the second year in a row of flooding.
Look at those barriers. It's pretty incredible if you think about it. Look, they have 2 layers deep. It actually looks like 3 layers. It's like 2 layers next to each other and then one on top. But look at these barriers. They're not very high tech. Right? It's like massive sandbags, essentially, but they're filled with dirt and earth and rocks, things like that. There's not much sand in Alaska, at least in most of Alaska, and they're just filling it with dirt. They're just creating a giant berm over here with these sandbags, these massive tote bags, and they're just building a big wall, and they're saying it's working to prevent the flooding, all right? And you can see actually here in the background, there's a pump. Let me see if I can kind of zoom in on it. It only zooms so much, and then it just like starts zooming out again. It's kind of weird. But in the right side over there, all right hand side, you can see a blue tube kind of going over the berm, And it looks like there's a water pump over here because it looks like there's water on both sides if you actually look. So it looks like they're pumping water out from behind the berm and dumping the water. You can see water dumping out of the blue tube to the other side of the berm and the wall. That's probably where the river and lake is over there. And they're pumping it out. All right. So it's not foolproof. It's not perfect, but it probably stopped it from getting a lot worse than it already was. All right. This area was flooding and they built these berms to stop the rising waters. All right. But pretty incredible what these walls can do and how simple it is too. Right. I remember living in Florida. I lived at this property that was really, really low, and there was a big hurricane coming through, and what I actually did was dug a ditch around my house, and I used all the sand from the ditch. I piled it up against my house, right? So I made like a big berm, big dirt wall like around the house, a couple feet up on the walls. Like literally just threw dirt on the walls because a big storm was coming. I didn't have sandbags or anything, and it was very low lying there. Right, so I was worried it was going to flood. There's been like kind of not the house flooding, but the yard has flooded, the area has flooded before, right around there. And that's just something I did. I'm not recommending someone do that, but that's just something I've done before out of desperation. Dug a little ditch, used the sand to build a berm, literally just stacked up against my house. And then I channeled the ditches too, out of my yard, like towards the gutters and towards the road, right? So if any water was accumulating there, it has somewhere to flow and can get out of here, right? Go to the gutters, and hopefully, and it was good enough, right? There was no flooding. And thankfully that worked, right? So just something to think about. If you're desperate, there are, you could get to digging, right? To try to save your property if you really needed to. Let's finish this clip and then we'll talk more about these earthquakes. There's more earthquakes that are hitting right now, all right?
Really cold, icy waters, really difficult to mitigate against, does a lot of damage to your home because of that glacial silt. So I think we're all breathing a sigh of relief.
I keep talking about these berms,
that glacial silt,
it's kind of
really
incredible.
difficult to mitigate against, does a lot of damage
amount
to
of
your
water
home.
that it's holding back, these berms. You can see some water's getting through, but it's doing its job, right? Pretty incredible what you can do with pretty simple
because
technology.
of that glacial silt. So I think we're all breathing a sigh of relief this afternoon.
Absolutely. But is it getting worse as each year goes by? Is that your experience?
That has been the experience. Not a lot is known about glacial lake outburst floods, this phenomenon that we're experiencing, because they mostly don't affect urban areas. But for the last 3 years, we've had increasingly greater magnitudes of flooding. And so it's something we're working round the clock, not only on this short-term mitigation, but on long-term solutions for our community.
All right, so you heard that there. That's what's going on right now in Alaska, all right? So lots of states are being warned. Also, Tennessee right now, Chattanooga, Tennessee, there is extreme flooding going on there. Rivers are overflowing, creeks are overflowing. People are trapped, cars are stuck. People can't leave their homes because roads are flooded. All right, that's happening in Chattanooga currently right now, and a disaster emergency declaration has been declared there as well too. All right, so this is just, you really can't escape. It seems like wherever you are in the country, you're either facing earthquakes, you're facing flood threats, you're facing fire threats, tornado threats. All these things are on the table right now, and there's a lot of activity happening. You can see though that earthquake that hit Montana right near Big Sky, 3.2, all right? Not super rare, but nothing to, just write off, right? Any type of activity here is something to look at. Thankfully, Yellowstone as a whole, the volcano is mostly defunct because it has so many different pressure release valves, all the different geysers, all of the calderas. They are releasing pressure at all times, right? Every day, Old Faithful goes off multiple times a day, right on cue. So it's hard for it to build up a lot of magma pressure. But if a big earthquake did hit here, and you can see these red lines here, these like faint red lines, you can see there's actually a fault line that goes right through here next to this earthquake that hit. All right, it's called the Madison Fault in the Madison Canyon section. All right, you can see right there, and it actually hit right on that fault line. So I think the play for Yellowstone would be to see a quote mega quake like we saw in Russia a few weeks ago, the 8.8. If something like that did hit Yellowstone, I think almost certainly we would see some type of big eruption, all right, because that would potentially shift these pathways for magma and pressure to flow and to be released, all right? So just something to be aware of, all right, because if this goes off, it's going to affect the entire country and the radius. It's going to affect multiple states. Just the ash plume, all right, all the way down to Colorado, going to be blanketed in ash, all right? So just something to be aware of, nothing to panic over or freak out about. But this AI just did determine there was over 80,000 quakes that were missed, all right? So what does that mean? How many earthquakes are actually happening too behind the scenes that are missed, not reported accidentally or even intentionally, all right? There could be even certain government entities hiding certain data. I'm not saying that's what's happening with the USGS here, but the possibilities are there, all right? There could be accidental misses. Their equipment is not recording it, is not completely accurate, or there could be even cover-ups. Not saying there are, but it's just a possibility, and it's something to think about. How do they miss 80,000 earthquakes? It's kind of weird. It kind of almost seems maybe they weren't reporting on a lot of them, so people weren't as freaked out. Okay, I don't know exactly, but 80,000 quakes, I mean, that definitely would have drew some type of interest over the last 15 years if they were being reported on, but they weren't. All right, so I just crunched the numbers on that. That's around 5,733 earthquakes every year over the past 15 years that they did not report on if there were 86,000 previously undetected quakes. So if they're missing 5,700 earthquakes just under Yellowstone alone, under one volcano, then what are they missing? What else are they missing? We don't really know. There could be a lot more activity going on that's just not reported, that is potentially has a lot more depth to it, these earthquakes, and maybe they're not felt as much on the surface level, so they kind of go under the radar, all right? They're unreported or undetected to the general public, so they're just not reported from geological surveys, from the U.S. Geological Survey. Who knows exactly what's going on, but it's weird, and it's suspicious that they hid over 5,000, almost 6,000 quakes every year hitting Yellowstone. Kind of weird. Something we deserve to know. It's information that should be available to the public, right? So make sure you guys are staying safe, staying prepared out there. You can still see Kamchatka Peninsula is still just getting hit hard, all right? Weeks later, this happened on July 29th. And that was 15, 16 days ago, over 2 weeks ago, and we're still just getting 4 after 4 after 4 in this part of Russia, some 5s, 5.2, some 5s, and also Krashenikov volcano is erupting in this peninsula as well too, and also the Kruchevsky volcano is erupting, some of the highest stratovolcanoes in the entire world, some of the highest elevation volcanoes in the world, and ancient volcanoes as well too erupting, haven't erupted in over 600 years and now being reactivated in Russia, right here not far from Alaska, right? It's even closer than it looks on the map. It looks pretty darn close on the map. It's even closer on the map. All these things, this dead space up here makes it really seem like things are a lot further away, but they're actually really close. Sorry, the Arctic Circle here is right up here. The Beaufort Sea is here, and it's all very close. And we're going to see these aftershocks ripple through the Pacific Rim for weeks to come. Weeks to come. All right, so, and it's actually not the worst thing to have these smaller earthquakes releasing pressure, but it's also concerning because this could become the new normal. So thank you guys. Hope you guys are staying safe, staying prepared, staying stocked up. All right, make sure you have some food for a couple weeks. Make sure you have some water bottles, some water filters, have a little generator, have some satellite internet. A lot of phones have satellite services on them now too, just in case stuff goes down, but those networks will be congested if there's an emergency in your area. Everyone's trying to use them, so it's best to have some type of satellite internet if you can afford it. A lot of them have really cheap data plans, monthly data plans, that you can use for just emergencies only. I think even Starlink now has a $5 a month plan where you don't get priority internet, but you get some type of internet in an emergency, right, when you need it. So it's going to be slow. It's not prioritized. You're going to be deprioritized behind everyone else who's downloading and uploading things. But you'll have some type of access to the internet in an emergency. I think it's only $5 a month. I just saw this. It's coming out like very soon if it's not already out. So something to think about to have in your back pocket. You gotta have the hardware, but there's a lot of deals on that too. I see deals sometimes for it for $50 or $100 for the whole Starlink kit, and then they are coming out with a new $5 a month plan as well too. No affiliation or anything, but just something I was reading about just earlier today. This $5 plan. So look into these things. Have backups. Have alternatives. Don't be a sitting duck. You know, if a megaquake hits, volcano hits, a fire hits, a flood hits, a hurricane hits, storm hits, whatever it is, civil unrest, any type of unrest, don't be a sitting duck for this, all right? So thank you guys. Hope you have big blessings for your life, your family, and I hope you have a big old blessed day.